You can cut out all interaction with people, and it's going to be more convenient, but it's also going to just deprive you of all these opportunities to practice Chinese. The opportunities to practice Chinese are all around you if you try to take advantage of them, and if you're willing to suffer, the inconvenience a little bit. I think it's all about talking with people as much as you can.
This is the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. For everyone who's learning Chinese or reaching for the next level, you came to the right place. I am your host, Jared Turner. And if procrastination were an Olympic sport, I'd start tomorrow. My co-host is John Pazin, who's out for this episode, but he had a lazy eye as a child, but it eventually spread to his whole body. In this episode, we've got a guest interview with Jack Mullinkosson. Let's get to it.
I'm Jack Mullinkosson. I'm an intermediate Chinese learner, and I make videos going around practicing Chinese, especially in Chengdu.
All right, Jack. Why did you start learning Chinese?
I started because I was working on a Chinese film production. I was on a film set where it was mostly people speaking Chinese and then foreigners that spoke Chinese. And I just felt excluded, so I wanted to learn Chinese. And I was the DIT on that film set, which is a job that has a lot of downtime.
DIT, what does that stand for? What is that?
It's basically just the guy who takes the footage from the camera cards and offloads it onto the hard drive.
Oh, okay.
So
you're kind of like a grip, footage. Right?
It's a lot chiller than a grip work, because grip, you're carrying around lights and stands and stuff like that. DIT, you're just sitting at a computer, dragging a footage from the camera onto the hard drive, and then it takes 30 minutes to offload. So you're just sitting there. The point is that you have a lot of downtime, and it was a month-long shoot. And so I just started.
Well, okay, first I got to hear about what movie was this? I mean, how did you get into this anyways?
So it wasn't a movie. It was at the time, it was Vice China existed. And so it was this kind of branded documentary thing about makeup. And I mean, I went to film school, so I worked in film, and I was taking assistant jobs at that time. So this was a summer during film school that I got this job.
Okay, so you were in university at this time, and where were you going?
Yeah. Chapman University in California.
Okay, cool. And I assume you're from California, is that?
I'm not. I'm from Chicago, but I just went to school there.
Okay, yeah, I grew up in Illinois myself. So hey, man.
Nice, yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, so you're doing this, and so I mean. So you said it was a documentary, Vice, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vice China got shut down shortly after this production, but it
Not
was...
surprised. I know Vice. I would imagine they have a hard time surviving in China with the type of stuff they do, which is, they do cool stuff, but yeah.
This was when the Hong Kong protests were erupting, and then Vice Hong Kong covered those protests. And then they were like, okay, well, can't be in China anymore. So that got shut down. I'm not sure even if that makeup documentary actually came out, but
really?
Yeah.
So what was this like though? But you said you're on this documentary set and you have all these Chinese speakers and you have these non-Chinese who are speaking Chinese as well. So what was it that kind of intrigued you and decided, hey, I want to learn this? Well,
the first time you see a foreigner speaking Chinese, it's like, that guy has a superpower. It just, I just thought it was so cool. And especially I saw the way that the Chinese people on set responded to the foreigners who spoke Chinese versus the way they responded to foreigners who didn't speak Chinese, the way that they were a lot more open to them and their faces lit up, to be able to speak Chinese with a foreigner. And I just wanted to be like those foreigners. I was like, that's so cool. How do you speak Chinese? And so I started asking them, and I just started studying during the day, while they were shooting, and then just at dinner, meeting the Chinese crew, trying to speak some Chinese to them. And then seeing that Chinese is not like French, which is what I had studied before, which is where if you make an effort, Chinese people are really receptive to you and really encouraging. And so even though obviously my Chinese sucked because I just knew a couple words and phrases, people were already telling me, oh, your Chinese is so good. And I didn't realize at the time that Chinese people always say that to all foreigners. So I started to believe it. I was like, oh man, I guess I'm good at this. Everybody's telling me I'm good at Chinese. And so that confidence in the beginning was enough to keep me going. And then after the film shoot ended in Seoul, and then I went to Chengdu after, my older brother has lived in Chengdu for like more than 8 years. And so,
Oh, okay. So,
yeah.
I mean, at this point, you're on set, but your
Mhm.
brother is already in Chengdu, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was on set with my brother. My brother was working on this crew as well. He works in film as well. That was how I
Okay.
got onto that film set to begin with. And my brother speaks Chinese as well. And so,
What was the difference per se? Like your brother speaking Chinese versus seeing all these other people speaking Chinese that really kind of sparked something in you?
now my brother's Chinese is very good, but at the time his Chinese wasn't that good. And there was another foreigner, a friend named Casey, who speaks like, they say, oh, his Chinese is perfect. I don't know if it's actually perfect, but it's kind of, if he's on the phone with a Chinese person, apparently they can't tell if it's a Chinese person or a foreigner. So
Apparently, yes.
Yeah, that's what they say, but you never can really trust.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's like self-evaluating your IQ. You're like, yeah, see, it's so good. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I think seeing somebody with such a high level was like particularly inspiring. I think that's what really like made it click for me. It was like, okay, I want to try this too.
Wow. Well, okay. So your brother's out there. He's on the set, and we're wrapping up. So how long was this shoot going on?
About a month.
Okay. And so you say you're studying downtimes. What were you doing during that time?
There was an app at the time that you could use to learn handwriting. So I was just writing different characters.
So Scritter, maybe?
Yeah, Scritter.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't really know how to study at that time. And so I wasn't studying very productively, but I was, just learning random phrases and stuff like that. And then, try to go use that phrase with a Chinese person.
Okay, well, this is during school. I guess school, was it going on, or were you like summer break or something?
It was summer break. I was about to enter into my last year.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, but after this, you ended up in Chengdu. Why? What happened? I mean, did you go with your brother, or talk about this?
Well, so after the film shoot, I went with my brother, and so just to visit, and I stayed a month there in Chengdu, and this was. Yeah, and then at that point, I just fell in love, and I was like, I'm not going back to college. Like, I'm dropping out of college. I just want to be like a Lawa in Chengdu.
And that's what you did, I presume.
No, I ended up going back to college.
Okay, your parents are probably like, what?
Yeah, my parents, my brother were like, you're not dropping out of college to become a Lawa in Chengdu. You're going to finish. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to finish, and I'm going to move right back to China as soon as I graduate. But then I graduated in 2020, and so it was a pandemic, and China was closed to tourists for years after. So I kind of ended up putting my Chinese studying on hold during that time.
Well, that last year, were you studying Chinese when you were back at university?
Yeah, because I got obsessed. And so all I wanted to do was study Chinese. And so I was studying. Wow. I got into a semester, and then I had to make my senior thesis documentary film. I made it about the Chinese community in like near LA. And then even when it was COVID, I ended up living with a Chinese family in the suburbs or in Rancho Cucamonga. Yeah, there's a lot of Chinese people in California. And
well, there are, but like, tell me, how did this work out where you ended up living with a family?
I made a poster that had like my face on it. It was like, American who's studying Chinese is looking to live with a Chinese family to like practice Chinese, and I'll help your kids with English. And some of my Chinese friends sent that off in like WeChat groups of Chinese people in California. And there was a lot of interest because these parents they really liked the idea of having an English speaker at homes, because the kids were no longer getting exposed to English, because the family I ended up staying with, the parents didn't really speak English. They had recently arrived. And so I lived with them. I ate dinner with them every night. They made like delicious food, and I practiced a lot of Chinese and helped the kids with English. That was a really interesting experience.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. I've not actually heard of anyone doing that. I'm curious, this poster or a little flyer you put together was in Chinese, I presume?
Yeah, I was in Chinese, had like a picture of me like wearing my graduation cap and gown.
I want to hear about that a little bit, about that experience. Okay, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what really prompted that idea. Like, once again, there's a lot of people which, like you said, all you wanted to do was learn Chinese. You kind of you caught the bug. It was like you're almost obsessed, right? But I mean, how many people really say, hey, I'm going to try to go live with a family to do this? So why did you decide to even pursue that?
Well, I was really interested in knowing more about the Chinese community, Chinese immigrants in the US. At my college, and like a lot of colleges, there are a ton of Chinese international students, but they're kind of hard to like infiltrate because they're all kind of stick to each other. And so like you'd be walking around college and like hearing people speaking Chinese. And I just had a lot of curiosity to get to know like the Chinese people at my school, because a lot of them actually, their English is very good and they all just hang out with each other. And so, but while I was making a documentary about the Chinese community in LA, I started working with them and getting them to come on set with me to help me film, and started getting to know them. And then there's neighborhoods in LA like Alhambra and Monterey Park where it's not like Chinatown, but it's like China. Like it's like you walk around and it's all the signs are in Chinese, and then you're going into businesses and everybody's speaking Chinese to each other. And there's other immigrant groups too, like in those neighborhoods, but it's mostly Chinese. And I guess I just realized that, I don't have to go to China to be speaking Chinese, be practicing speaking Chinese with Chinese people. There's a ton of Chinese people here. And I guess what I was also interested in at that time was like, I wanted to hang out with people who didn't really speak English, because that's the only way that we're really going to be using Chinese to communicate. Because, my friends that speak Chinese, but also speak English, well, it just feels silly. If I have the vocabulary of like a second grader and we're using Chinese to communicate, and that can be tough especially when you're a beginner. That is something that you can kind of persevere later on. And maybe if you have an intermediate level and you have a friend whose English is still better than your Chinese, you can still continue to speak to them in Chinese. And I find that still works. Eventually they'll give up speaking English with you and just switch to Chinese, even though your Chinese is worse than their English. I mean, that's a good, what I try to do. But
well, what was that experience like then, living with this family?
It's like, okay, they had like one of these like suburban McMansion type things, like this big house in Rancho Cucamonga. And I saw the pictures. They're like, yeah, you come live here. I'm like, okay, awesome. Like, they're like, yeah, you just get this room. Like you pay this much. We'll cover all your food while you're here. And they're like, oh, by the way, like there's like some other people living in the house.
Oh, okay. I can see where this is going. All right.
And there was like, they had converted the office downstairs into a bedroom, and there was a family of 4 from Sichuan living in this office.
What?
There was a guest bedroom upstairs that a family of 4, because grandma and husband and wife and the son from Shanghai were there. And then that whole family lived in the master bedroom. So there was like, more than 12 people. Like,
so 4 families living in this home, and then you.
Yeah, 3 families and me. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 3 families and you. So wow. Okay, so that's a different, little different than I imagine was expected.
Yeah. And then just kind of shared the kitchen, and I taught classes in the garage, English classes, kind of, even though I didn't really know how to teach English, but I told them that. They're like, yeah, that's fine. We don't need someone with experience. Okay.
You have a white face. You're a native speaker. Okay, you're good, right? Yeah, I know. That's the China. Is how they look at things sometimes. So that's wild. I mean, did that family own the house, or were they all just renting? I mean,
they had bought it, but like they didn't work because it was gonna. I remember the husband was like trying to, get a trucker's license. And he was like, here, Jack, can you help me with this like driving test I have to take? And I was looking at it. I was like, dude, you are not going to pass this test. This is like, there's a lot of English. It's like really complex. And he has to like answer all these questions. I was like, you need to learn how to speak English, like if you want to pass this test. And so, that I think they had, this income from the families, living in their house, and they did all sorts of things to like make money. Like, they would order a giant box of goosenecks online and then like cook those up and then like post in the WeChat groups like, hey, we got goosenecks. And then like the Chinese people in the neighborhood would come filing in, like buying these goosenecks from them. They would like sell, random food items. Somehow they would be like, a lot of the Chinese immigrants living there, what they would do is they would buy designer clothes from outlet stores and then send those to Chinese people in the US. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I as their like resident local American person, I helped them figure out a lot of things. Like somebody would come knock at the door. They'd be like, Jack, come here and help us figure this out. And she's like busting in my room, like on the phone. She's like, yo, help me with this phone call. She's like on the phone with like the food stamps, whatever, like trying to figure out why her like food stamps card wasn't working. And then they were so like resourceful. Like they would use their food stamps, like go to Costco, like get a ton of stuff and then end up like cooking it up and selling it. And they were very smart in the way they were figuring out how to use like the benefits available in America to get by and live in this like suburban McMansion thing and send their kids to like a good high school. Wow. They were actually a really cool family. Yeah, I lived there for about 4 months.
That is quite a story. I mean, I think though that underscores something I've really learned to, I guess, really appreciate about Chinese in general is how resourceful they could be. Yeah. They're hustling, they're working hard, they're trying to just make it work, and they find a way.
At that time, she asked me, do you want to teach other kids English? And I was like, well, I mean, I could use the money, but again, I don't really have experience. She's like, no, I think other people will hire you. And she was sending me out like, she's this great like marketer, and she was sending, posting in these WeChat groups. And all of a sudden I had like 8 different students. And I was just like driving around Rancho Cucamonga from like Chinese family to Chinese family, like teaching different kids or even teaching adults like English. And I had this great business thanks to her.
Wow. That's not unheard of to happen in China, but to happening there in Rancho Cucamonga in California, that's a different matter, right?
Exactly. You can be a Lao Wai English teacher in California. And everyone still called me Lao Wai. They're like,
really?
Like I would go there and they'd be like, oh, like, yeah, like, 你们老外不注意安全. It's like, oh, like you foreigners aren't being careful with the virus. I was like, you're a foreigner. Like I'm not a Lao Wai.
I remember one time I was walking behind, I think it was a group of 4 Chinese. It was after some basketball game or something. They were and a ton of people there. And I hear them speaking in Chinese, and so I'm right behind them. I said, I'm like, oh, Lao Wai. And they looked at me. They're like, what? I'm like, and I was like pointed at them. You guys are the Lao Wai now, right?
Nice. Got him.
But maybe you could tell me a little bit, like, what was your Chinese like going into that, and how was it coming out on the other end?
It was not great. It was, I mean, at that point, I could read the Mandarin Companion graded readers. Some of them.
Hey, there you go. I hear those are great books.
No, they really are. Yeah, I've read all of them, I think.
Oh, have you? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that.
They were really helpful for my studying. I wish you guys made more, honestly. If you had intermediate levels, I'd be reading them still.
I know. It's part of the dream, but yeah. But
okay.
So when did you actually get to those? Because I mean, you need some characters, right? So I assume you were learning characters, and were you even reading them at that point or later on?
Yeah, I was reading them at that point. So,
oh, nice.
I was probably, I could read all of HSK2, maybe even HSK3. Yeah, I think when I got there, I was like learning the words for HSK4 at that point. I think I had basically, I never like taken the test, but my vocabulary was already at a, HSK3 level.
Yeah. So, I mean, your Mandarin Companion, you're reading level 1 at least, probably. At that point.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome. So then what was that like then, your development of your language, your skills during that period?
My Chinese was very like 口语, like it was just big focus on spoken Chinese. And I was starting to, adapt some of their like Beijing way of speaking, like just getting their accent a little bit and using some of the ways they referred to things. It ended up being because I got so into like teaching English because the mom was so like business savvy, and she's like, no, like, and the dad too, he's like, yeah, you should be focusing on like making money. Like you're young, like money's important. Like, so like I ended up being like spending most of my, like came in thinking it was going to be this great like Chinese learning experience. And it was that for the first month or so. And then I just got so into teaching that like my Chinese didn't even see as much improvement because I was so focused on teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I know what you're saying.
My Chinese honestly probably just stayed at that level, but I got better at using the vocabulary that I already had known, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that's something we always talk to people about. It's like, okay, what is fluent really? It's not this, thing where, you 10 years down the road, and, oh, now I'm fluent. No, I mean, you can be fluent now in what you know, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, but this is now COVID time. You're living with this family. I mean, shutdowns are going on. 4 months later, I guess you just kind of said, hey, this is enough, or you move back home. What'd you do?
Yeah, exactly. I moved back home. At that time, I was thinking about going to law school. I was applying for law schools, and then I was still really interested in studying languages. That was the thing I cared the most about. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to, I submitted my law school applications. I said, I'm going to go to Brazil until the first semester starts of law school, and I'll try to learn Portuguese while I'm there, because I just really wanted to study languages. And I mean, the thing about studying Portuguese is like, compared to studying Chinese, it's so easy. Like within a month of studying Portuguese, I was like better than I was after like a full year of studying Chinese, and then I ended up, I went to Brazil, and then I just ended up falling in love with Brazil, and I stayed there for like 3 years and never went to law school. Thank God.
Wow. Okay, man. Well, I didn't expect that. There's this big Brazil section of your story there. 3 years in Brazil.
But I had, China still in the back of my mind. I was like, I already spent all this time learning Chinese. Like, I really want to go back to China. And then, once China opened back up again, I found a way to come back.
That's good. Well, tell me just a little bit about Brazil. So what were you doing while you were there?
When I came there, I was just like unemployed and would work editing jobs in film from time to time. Or I had, one opportunity to come back to LA to work as a cinematographer for one job. I mean, I was mostly just studying Portuguese, and then I wanted to find a remote job that I could continue to do from Brazil. So that's when I got into learning how to program. And I took a course on programming, and then I started working remotely as a software engineer.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Okay. Well, then what's this path then back to China? Something that I don't know is like just doing the travel log, but this journey of yours geographically is also quite interesting.
Well, so at that point I had the software engineering job figured out. It was like freelance and remote. So I just had freelance clients. And so I was able to really be anywhere. They didn't care if I was in China or in Brazil, as long as we could set up meetings, which isn't always easy to do, but if you're willing to, have some late or really early meetings, then you can make it happen. So I, was like, okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit with the software engineering work, just go down to 1 or 2 clients. And then I'm going to do a semester at a Chinese university in Chengdu.
Oh, okay.
And then I did so that was last year. I did 1 semester of Chinese. And then I left China again, went back to Brazil, and then I came back again this summer.
Okay, so why Brazil and why back again?
Like, while I was a student at the university, like learning Chinese every day, my Chinese was getting a lot better. But I mean, like I just told you, like I had made that decision to go down to 1 or 2 clients, and I was like, okay, now I'm running out of money, and I really want to be studying Chinese, but it's hard to focus on studying Chinese when I'm like worried about money, and it just didn't seem to make sense. And it was easier for me to get more clients while living in Brazil, while being based in that time zone. Because if I already have a client and then I say, okay, now I'm going to China, they're okay with it usually. But if it's a new client, I'm doing the interview and it's, oh, where are you based? Oh, I'm actually in China. They're like, that doesn't sound like we want to hire you. So,
interesting.
So the main reason was because I ran out of money, and I was thinking if I want to go back to China, I want to try to figure out a way to make Chinese make learning Chinese linked with my career in some ways, because otherwise it's just like you're pulled in one direction, then pulled in a different direction, and it's like hard to make progress. And so that was how I first started with making the videos, because I wanted to, I would often practice Chinese by like, okay, I'm going to go out in public and treat this as like a Chinese mission. You know what I mean? I'm going to go buy plants right now, or I'm going to go to some like traditional Chinese medicine doctor or something. And I'm going to like look up some words beforehand. I'm going to try to use the Chinese, I'm just going to try to speak Chinese as much as possible. And then I was like, okay, I can make videos doing these missions. And then, and making the videos themselves will be, like a Chinese practice when I'm actually speaking Chinese. And then also while I'm editing the videos, I'm adding subtitles like that. And then if I can figure out a way to, get money from these videos eventually, then I'll have succeeded in making learning Chinese linked with making money, which is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had kind of a process there. And how's that been working out for you?
Financially, not great yet. It's had a little bit of money, but it's been really fun to make the videos. That's for sure. And, I've had a couple opportunities to make some like branded videos and things like that. And it's slowly growing.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think, I've seen some of your stuff there, but maybe you could just kind of talk about, you kind of previewed a little bit, right? Some of the things you are doing, but maybe you could talk about some of the things which really, I guess, has resonated. For lack of better words, go viral, but, in our sphere, right? Viral is a very, not like viral, right? But with as viral as it can go within, this type of sphere. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
True. I have, one video where I was always curious about the shushu that work out in the parks in China, because at least in Chengdu, there's a couple of shushu that are like jacked and like doing some crazy like calisthenics moves. And so I thought I just want to talk to these guys and work out with them. And I was doing calisthenics myself at the time. And so I made one video where I just went to the park and, kind of worked out badly near them to the point that I knew that they would come in and just start giving me tips. And, that was, one short video I did, and, learned that this guy was like 65 years old and just doing some like incredible moves, swinging fully around the bar.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Like I know exactly what you're saying. It's like, hey, just do it poorly next to them, right?
Yeah.
And I know the type of guys you're talking about. They're like, oh no, that's wrong. You got to do it like this, right?
It's the perfect trick for if you want to learn something,
Oh, that's hilarious. But did you ever go back and like meet these guys or start working out with them?
Yeah, I went back, worked out again with them. I wish I could say I kept up with my workout routine, but I kind of got lazy with that. But
well, you definitely got some, professional coaching, right?
Yeah, I theoretically know how. The big thing he told me, he's like, what I love about Chinese people is they're like so direct. He's like, yeah, I can tell you haven't been doing this for very long. He's like, your lats are too weak. Like you need to work out your lats, and he gave me the exercises to work out my lats. So I know how to improve now. I just need to, lock in.
Nice. Yeah. What were some other other stuff like this?
I don't know if this is everywhere in China because my travel is mostly limited to Chengdu, but I find that the like aunties that you'll meet are so often just so cute and so friendly and so nice, and they'll always like just strike up these conversations with me. So I think most of my best videos are like I'm just somewhere, and then just this really charming and cute auntie like starts talking to me, and we just have some funny banter for a couple of minutes. I have videos where I'm buying like meizijiu in this plum wine, which is really popular in Chengdu, and we just have a long conversation where she's telling me to find a Chengdu girlfriend, which is usually the like end goal of the conversations with these aunties is usually like, hey, you should find a Sichuan girl.
Yeah. That is cute. And you know what? I totally agree with that. That's a great word. Just they're really cute. Yeah. And, what's something I've always thought about is that, China, it was shut off for so long, right? And now they're much more, see foreigners and stuff. But, in some instances, those ladies that you talk to, sometimes you're the first foreigner they've actually ever conversed with, you know? And they're always so curious, they always want to hear, what everything about you. They want to, how old you are, what's your job, how much money you make, are you married, right? All that fun stuff.
That's great Chinese practice there,
Yeah.
And, sometimes you're answering the same questions, many times a day as a foreigner in China, but at least you can get really good at answering those questions, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, Jack, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now. From what I understand, you are on a road trip, but this is not what normally people would think is a road trip.
Yeah, it's a bike trip. I'm trying to bike from Chengdu to Hanoi, Vietnam.
And now let's be clear, this bike, we're not talking about motorcycling. You're on a bicycle. Yes.
I'm on a bicycle, on a mountain bike with heavy packs on it.
All right. Okay. All right. How's this going so far?
Slow, a lot slower than I thought it would be. And I'm a lot less in shape than I thought I was. So it's difficult and cold, but it's really fun. You know, it's rewarding, and I'm not, you know, camping. So I'm taking showers every night. So
okay, for now,
that's for now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, who knows? You might end up staying in someone's, I don't know, who knows where you're going to end up over this next little while, right?
I think so.
So how much further do you have to go?
Like over 1,000 kilometers. I mean, theoretically, if I'm going to make it all the way to Hanoi, you know, it's possible I'm going to just give up at some point along the way and, you know, just sell my bike. It's not a very expensive bike, so I can just sell it or get rid of it. But, you know, theoretically, if I'm going to do the whole journey, Chengdu to Hanoi is like more than 2,000 kilometers, I think.
Okay. All right. So 2,000 kilometers. So that's for miles for us, you know, Americans.
It's like a million football fields.
There you go. 1,200 miles, I guess that should be. So,
okay, nice.
And what are we targeting here? What, 30 miles a day? Is it 50 or 100?
I'm targeting right now 80 kilometers a day.
No, 42 miles a day, roughly. So, okay, 40,
nice.
50, yeah. But I know, man, that place, you're out in Chengdu and you're going to be heading down through the southern part of China. That is rough terrain. That stuff's no joke.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely hilly.
I have yet to find the actual Chinese version of this saying, but I've heard this before. It's easier to get to heaven than it is to travel the Sichuan road. So I'm sure you're going to be able to testify to the validity of that statement here pretty soon.
Yeah, well, you're the first person who told me that saying, so I both feel concerned about my future to come, but also somehow justified in my suffering.
Wow. So what are some of the things do you have any other plans or hopes along the way?
My main hope is just, you know, to see like a lot of big cities in China, at least Chengdu is like this. It feels like you're in a mall. You know, you have really recent developments, and everything is really perfect. You have good roads, but it doesn't feel like that unique, I guess, in terms of terrain, in terms of the shops. And so, I don't know, I'm just looking to see like a different type of China than I've seen in big cities. You know, I feel like a lot of big cities in China like look similar. It's like, oh yeah, like looks really futuristic and like looks really cool, but I don't know. There's something interesting about small villages that feels like, you know, people say like authentic, you know, I mean, what does that even really mean? And maybe that's just like your mind of what you imagine China looked like before you ever went there or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah,
you know, I think that I'm just looking forward to like going through these villages that you wouldn't normally go through if you took the high-speed rail, and then seeing the type of people that I meet, seeing the type of food that, you know, they're cooking up, and probably the type of dialect that people are speaking. I mean, I have a feeling that I'm going to have a lot of difficulties with dialect that is not, you know, is even different than the Chengduhua I'm used to hearing.
I would imagine that you will encounter that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like when I make the videos, like there's subtitles on them, but like sometimes I just wish that I had the subtitles while I was living the experience, you know, like I didn't have to wait until the edit.
How nice would that be? Oh, that's no joke. Wow.
I guess that's coming with the glasses, you know.
Well, Jack, I want to hear a little bit of your perspective here as a language learner. All right. Specifically, sometimes it's always curious to find out some of the differences and some of the challenges in learning Chinese versus some other languages. And in specifically right here, Portuguese. I mean, you spent some time in Brazil, a number of years learning Portuguese. and as well now Chinese. Maybe you could help me understand, contrast some of the differences between the two languages. What have you found more challenging, and which one maybe you even have enjoyed the most?
The simple answer is that Portuguese is really easy compared to Chinese. And Chinese is really difficult. It's one cool thing about learning Chinese is because it's so much harder, it can be more rewarding. People can be more surprised that, somebody whose native language is English learned Chinese. Portuguese has so many similarities with English that, it's not quite as impressive to be able to speak Portuguese. But Portuguese has a lot going for it in terms of really good music. There's a lot of really good Brazilian music. So I think there are more and literature that I'm more interested in. Of course, my level of Portuguese is higher than my level of Chinese. So it's not like I even really could be reading like classic Chinese literature the same way that I can read classic Brazilian literature. I think that there's one complaint I hear some Chinese learners talk about, and I kind of resonate with, is it's hard to find content that they're interested in consuming in Chinese that's like good Chinese practice,
Yeah.
And that's part of why your guys' graded readers are nice, especially when you're a beginner. You have some content that you can consume when you're at that level. But as I'm encouraging you to keep making the graded readers, because as your level gets higher, you now you're at this intermediate level where you can't read stuff designed for native speakers yet, but the stuff designed for beginners is too boring. Mm-hmm. I think that's a challenge that you have really in any language. But one good thing about Portuguese is there's so many cognates with English. There's so many words that have the same Latin base,
same root, or they're similar enough. Yeah,
exactly. So you can, even when you don't have you're still at a beginner or intermediate level, you could still read a lot of books in Portuguese because it's like, oh, I have some French experience too. I have some Spanish experience too. Like, I think I know what that word probably means, and you can kind of keep reading and still get the gist of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chinese is got nothing, man.
It's like, well, I recognize that radical. Like maybe this word has something to do with a person.
I love it. The few loan words that are out there. Mango, mango, microphone. I mean, it's okay, that's not going to get me very far, frankly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, Chinese, yes. I think, you just confirmed something we already knew, right? Chinese is definitely more challenging. But, on the Chinese side too, are there any experiences that you had along the way where it's like, hey, wait a second, this is really catching. This is, or like you have some breakthrough moments where, hey, man, I can learn this language.
A breakthrough moment for me was when I did this technique of shadowing, which is when you take an audio clip and you loop it and you try to repeat it at the same time as the native speaker in the exact same way that the native speaker is talking. Mm-hmm. So I remember I grabbed, some audio clip from some podcast. I think, he was talking about the differences between people from the north of China or something. And he said something like, 北方的话,大部分都是 something like this. This was the sentence. I mean, I still remember, even though I was practicing it like 5 years ago, I repeated it, thousands of times to try to say it like he was saying it. So I still remember it to this day. But I think what clicked for me then was, I was like, why is what I'm saying sound so different from what he's saying? I was like, why does it feel like he's like making these weird sounds like 大部分? Like I was like, it sounds like he's, and I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then it finally clicked for me, like, oh, that's what fourth tone is. Da. Like even though you learned tones from the beginning, what all the four tones are, somehow they didn't really click for me. And then I also realized, third tone, 北方的话, I was like, oh, his voice went that low. Like that's actually what third tone is. And so then I started to use those tones when I spoke. I was like, oh, now I sound like a Chinese person, kind of, I think like
you sound now, somewhat like, normal.
Yeah. I was like, wait, now, and like, I don't know. I think doing that shadowing and getting my pronunciation better, was big for me. Now, some Chinese speakers tell me like, you can calm down. Like you're kind of exaggerating fourth tone. Like you don't have to say "la" like every time something's like spicy, like, but maybe overdoing it is better than not doing the tone at all, which is what a lot of Chinese learners do, is maybe they just ignore tones. And maybe you can do that when you start if it's too confusing to you, but like, come on, do at least a little bit of the tones if you can.
It's better to exaggerate it than not do it at all. I guess maybe that's
that's how I feel. Maybe Chinese native speakers would disagree. Maybe they feel so annoyed by me making these ridiculous sounds.
And you sound like a broadcaster. 在中国我们So yeah, that's cool. That's really well, Jack. I think something that's been really clear to me during our conversation is that learning Chinese is something you've really enjoyed, and it seems like it's been rewarding to you. Are there can you think of experience or anything where you feel like maybe Chinese really paid off, or it was just something, a really rewarding experience to you?
Yeah, I remember one day I was traveling through Spain, and I don't speak Spanish. And I was in Barcelona for just a couple hours. I had to cross the city and find the bus that I was going to take. And it was late, and I was looking for somewhere to eat and kind of intimidated by the language and not wanting to. A lot of people go to Barcelona and just speak English, but I didn't want to do that. But I found this place, and I was trying to communicate with the owner. And then he started speaking with his son in Mandarin, and I realized, oh, this guy is Chinese.
What was he? He was really Asian looking?
He was Asian, yeah.
Okay.
He was Chinese, and so I can speak Chinese with this guy. And so, I guess, and I ended up ordering like, some Chinese dish there, and something that I had recognized. And what's that dish? 番茄鸡蛋.
番茄鸡蛋, so the egg and tomato,
the classic one,
I love that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like that was what I needed, and I don't know, just the fact that me knowing Chinese like literally helped communication in that moment. It wasn't just that I was going out and speaking Chinese just for the sake of practicing. I was like, here I am with this guy, like trying to communicate. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak Spanish. But hey, we have Chinese and I speak Chinese. And so the fact that Chinese actually got me out of trouble in that situation, it's like felt cool. It's like, oh, I have this like hidden superpower. Like I can speak a little Chinese,
I say occasionally, that Chinese is, I think it's like that superpower language, because you could really go almost anywhere in the world, and any sizable city, you're going to find a Chinese restaurant and there's Chinese people there. And they'll help you out. If you come there speaking Chinese, you could be anywhere, and you got an instant connection with people who are going to be delighted you speak Chinese.
Yeah, and that's very rewarding.
Well, Jack, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's learning Chinese right now?
Especially if you're in China, you can isolate yourself with technology. You can just order Waimai, or just order Taobao, or you can even go to a restaurant and scan the QR code to order and never interact with the waiter. You can use your phone to get directions to everything. You can cut out all interaction with people, and it's going to be more convenient, but it's also going to just deprive you of all these opportunities to practice Chinese. So the opportunities to practice Chinese are all around you, if you try to take advantage of them, and if you're willing to like suffer, the inconvenience a little bit. And, say you just go ask somebody for directions for, hey, is there any coffee shop nearby? Maybe they don't know, and maybe they're going to just give you some bad directions, and maybe you're never going to get the coffee, but like if at least you can practice Chinese, at least you can talk to people more. I think that's what it's all about. I think it's all about talking with people as much as you can. And it's a little bit embarrassing. And sometimes you feel like you're wasting people's time. It's like, oh, it would be more convenient for this person if I just use my phone. But I think you should not be afraid to like waste people's time, I guess, because they don't really care. And I think usually they're going to be happy to talk with you. I remember being in Chinese class when I studied Chinese, and all of the other students had way better reading and writing than me. They could read the dialogue much more fluently. They could write characters, which I couldn't do at all. But then we'd go out to lunch together, and they were like scared to order, scared to talk, because they had worked more on like these academic parts of learning Chinese and less on the talking. And that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why don't you want to speak? Shouldn't that be your main priority? So I think, same thing with, my Chinese isn't even very good, so I maybe shouldn't be giving advice. Just maybe if you take my advice, you'll just end up as good as me, which is not very good. But, I think something that I did, even when I was in the US, like I talked about, meeting the Chinese community in California, there are opportunities to speak, if you connect with the local Chinese community, even if you're not in China.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I've definitely gotten that from your story, Jack, that, you looked and took those opportunities. You made opportunities.
Right.
Not just waited for them. You made your own opportunities to have these experiences and interactions so you could really practice and develop your Chinese.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. Well, Jack, thanks so much for taking the time to be here on this podcast and share your story with us. If people want to see some of the stuff that you're making, where can they go?
You can watch my videos on YouTube, Instagram, Rednote as well. My account is Jack Mullinkosson. That's MULLINKOSSON. On Chinese social media, it's 老兔子在中国, old rabbit in China.
Well, Jack, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. And hey, good luck on this cycling trip through southern China. And hopefully next time we chat, you're going to be in Vietnam.
Yeah, hope so. Yeah, thanks for having me, Jared. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. I am your host, Jared Turner, co-founder of Mandarin Companion. Alongside my co-host is out for this episode, John Pazin, who's co-founder of Mandarin Companion, founder of All Set Learning, the Chinese Grammar Wiki, and Sinosplice.com. If you like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and it's the best way to help us reach more Chinese learners like you. You can also leave us a review on iTunes. We love hearing from you. You can also reach us at mandarincompanion.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter for more tips, updates, and good times. You want a fun way to boost your Chinese? Grab a Mandarin Companion graded reader available on Amazon, Apple Books, Google Play, or wherever you get your books. Apologies to John Cena, we just ran out of time. The You Can Learn Chinese podcast is produced by myself, Jared Turner, and is edited by Jasper Chua. A big thanks to our special guest, Jack Mullinkosson. And of course, thanks to my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, John Pazin. See you next time.